All right, Derek, we've got goals today as promised. But before we get into that, I wanted to take a moment because I think it's take advantage of the topical issue. In previous podcasts, we had talked about earlier in this year, we saw a shift from growth into value. And we urged our listeners not to jump ship just because we have a temporary shift in a preference of the type of stock. And one of the things that we saw this week, or last week, I should say, is we saw Nike explode 16% in one day. NVIDIA has taken off. AMD has taken off. PayPal, which is a favorite of ours, has taken off. Shopify has done very well. So these are all the traditional growth stocks that had done very well in the previous years and the years prior to that. And we saw them explode again. And I think we want to take that lesson to remind ourselves why we have to think long term and why we don't feel the need to be all in or all out into a stock or an investment.
Yeah. And it's another lesson in like the contrarian investing where if you miss the run, like in the market, if you're just patient and you make smart decisions, everything will come back. Don't listen to the talking heads on CNBC or wherever where they're saying you need to sell all of your growth to buy value but when they're saying that value is already up 10%, right. So you missed it. So you just lick your wounds, and then either you can start adding to value, like if you think that run's going to continue, or you can continue to add into quality companies that are growth companies. But the worst thing you can do is just sell out of all of your growth because everyone says it's value now, and then you miss the run in both, and then you'll quickly dwindle to zero.
I think that
it's the lamest way to lose money.
The thing that you have to remember is the news that is put out there on social media, on your CNBC, is all for that day's news. It's for traders. So it's designed for somebody who's making a decision and might be selling a stock relatively soon. So when they're saying that XYZ, if they're saying that growth is not popular for how long? For a month, for 2 months, for 6 months, for a year? And we have always hit home on stop worrying about if it's a growth or a value stock and worrying about the quality of the company. We had stated when a lot of these companies were reporting earnings and they were getting beat up, you and I had said, it's just a matter of time because the market can't ignore these earnings forever. And that's what we saw. I think we finally saw a tipping point there with some of these companies. They just exploded. And had we not been patient and been willing to be foolish for a period of time and look stupid for a period of time, while value was taking off, if we would have sold out of these growth stocks, we would have missed out on a tremendous run.
Yeah, I mean, just to give some tips, some stocks that haven't come back yet, like Alibaba has gotten beat up pretty bad, still hasn't come back. It's one of the reasons I looked at AMD, and Salesforce was the one that we were just sitting on for a while where it just wasn't moving, it wasn't budging, but the interior numbers, all of their metrics got better and better and better. But the stock wasn't moving, and those are usually signs for good opportunities.
That's the struggle that I have with new clients who have maybe never been into investing and they want to have individual stocks. And I just did a podcast while you were on vacation. I told everybody you were in Nashville and you were in South Carolina, right? North Carolina. I can't even get the state right.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, the Outer Banks.
But I did the podcast on.
Do I look tan? Is the camera picking up my tan?
I think tanner is the word.
Yeah, tan. Yeah, I'm definitely not tan. I will never ever be tan.
But getting back to the idea of stop thinking in a calendar year with your investments, because if we're buying a stock, typically we're buying it as long-term investors, we're buying them for 5 years from now. And you had mentioned Salesforce. I remember having a meeting with a client who we had picked up Salesforce for them as a holding. And she was talking about how it seems like it had underperformed, and it had underperformed. But if you look back, if you can scale that back to a 2-year, a 3-year, a 5-year mark, I think you'll see these companies that are the companies that are pushing this market forward. They will outperform the market.
When in doubt, zoom out.
When in doubt, zoom out. That's a perfect example. Well, and
yeah, I didn't come up with that.
No. The thing to remember though is, I think it is natural to feel not confident in the moment. So in the moment when we're seeing these things that we love sell off, if we're seeing them not perform, and let me give you a personal story here. And this is what I do for a living. So we have a client who Nike has been part of its portfolio. When we decided to build this portfolio for him, we decided that Nike was going to be a component in that portfolio. And every time that Nike was dropping This is the previous weeks. Every time Nike was dropping below $134 a share, I would pick some up. And it would drop to 133. I would pick some up. 131, drop some up. It dropped to 128. And there was part of me that was questioning it. Am I making the right move? But when in doubt, zoom out. Nike is a company that has a long history of growth. They have brands like the Jordan brand. I just read an article that Nike is still raking in billions of dollars because of that Jordan brand. And Michael hasn't shot a basket, at least in a professional game, in almost 20 years. So,
are you sure they're not buying it because of his baseball card?
They could be.
That's probably what. Yeah,
It could be. So even moments in time, and this is what I do for a living, I question whether what I'm doing is correct. But ultimately, you have to stick to your thesis. If you're investing in quality companies, it will win out in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, a good example for me would be even Nvidia. I know like it's clear as day right now because it just hit an all-time high today. We're recording on the 28th of June, but like for the longest time there, it wouldn't break past. Like it was hovering around 500, like 5, and then it'd be like 525, and that was a big deal. And then it'd come back down below 5, and then it just kind of bobbed in there for a while before it really broke out. But we knew like the thesis was stronger and getting stronger than ever. And then like I kept adding to that position, and it's finally starting to pay off. So,
yeah, and for listeners who are not aware, NVIDIA makes these chips, graphics processing units that are in super high demand. And we're in a situation now where we have a chip shortage. So yeah, in hindsight, you look at this and you say, yeah, that made total sense. I shouldn't have been concerned at all. I should have been, piling money into NVIDIA while it was down. And the same thing could be said about Nike. And the fact that you look at the thesis here that we had going into this is when you have COVID begin to break and people are going back to work and they're out buying clothes again and they're playing sports again, Nike should benefit tremendously because of that. And we found that they did.
I mean, you really knocked that one out of the park. You called that one in January with our stocks for COVID Light 2021. And you said retail was the winner, or retail was a winner. And you said Nike and Lululemon. So yeah, you've been calling that one for a while, and it was shot up 16% post earnings. So yeah, you really knocked that one out of the park.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to sell Nike anytime soon because again, that's something I'm owning long term. I think the future is bright to continue that. I think people will, as people get out into the workforce, get out into everyday life. I mean, we're recording this in Ohio. Ohio has opened up essentially back to normal from what it was before, but there are still states that have a little bit of restrictions involved.
Yeah. This is a good example for like contrarian investing where it's like, cause you've been calling Nike and you've been adding to Nike, but I actually have not been adding to Nike. So like it would be hard for me to open up a position in Nike now after it just jumped 16%. Yep. It seems like over the long term, like the entry point doesn't matter, but maybe wait for a little bit of a pullback there. But I mean, if you're holding it for the foreseeable future, like you're in the gravy now, like you get a big buffer of sleep easy at night with your Nike stock.
And today, the market's not closed yet, but today when I looked at Nike earlier today, it was selling off a little bit, a couple percent points down, which is not to be unexpected. Anytime something jumps, double digits.
Profit taking,
Yeah, people are going to take the profits on that. So that's something to keep in mind. Whenever you see something jump dramatically and you feel like you've missed the boat on that, wait a couple of days.
Just wait, yeah.
Yeah, because it'll probably come back down once people take profits, and then you can buy it for another run.
Yeah, I feel like in my limited experience, when I pay attention to like the trading activity post or before earnings, a lot of times it's very irrational, where they'll have a blowout quarter, but one sentence that the CEO said the analysts didn't like, and then it'll sell off. And then like that's perfect buying opportunity because usually in the next couple of days, like the market clears, everybody realizes that that's insanity, that they just had I forget which quarter it was, but PayPal had an example like that where they had the best quarter that they've ever posted in the history of PayPal.
I think it was last quarter.
And it sold off. It was either last quarter or the quarter before that. It was pretty recently. And then like it sold off steep. Like it was, but it was insanity. Like there's no reason that it should have sold off. And I added to the position, and then lo and behold, and over the next couple of days, it came back.
Yeah, it's up very nicely right now, and if you can be patient, you can wait a quarter, a month, or 6 months, or however long. I mean, that patience, as I've stated numerous times before, is your superpower. I saw when you talk about this insanity, I'm I'm looking at the last Federal Reserve meeting where they came out and they said, we potentially see an interest rate hike or two by the end of 2023 or through 2023. And the markets the next day sold off. And then they've since got to their senses and came back because, come on, guys, 2023. And when they're going to raise interest rates, it's likely 0.25% at a time.
Sure. Yeah, they're not going to make big swings. And that didn't make sense to me. Like, it was perceived as a bearish move just because they mentioned that they were going to raise interest rates. But that was like if you were going to be as cautious as possible. Like, I couldn't even imagine a scenario that was more cautious than that. Like saying in 2 years we'll raise it maybe 0.5%, if that. It's like that seems pretty bullish for growth stocks.
Yeah, and it's got to be expected. I mean, eventually interest rates have to get off the ground for a number of reasons.
Yeah,
it'll help the savers out there, but two, when your interest rate's at zero, effectively zero, you don't have a whole lot of tools in your tool belt to operate from. So there's not a lot of moves that the Federal Reserve can make if we do begin to see a slowdown again.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that type of move would make me more worried that the market's going to get too hot, and I'd be more worried about that than any pullbacks from an interest rate hike of 0.25%.
Right, I agree. Well, Derek, let's get into goals.
Goals.
What is have you ever what is your best book on goals that you read? Have you read any?
Oh yes, I read the 10x rule by Grant Cardone, the Instagram real estate guy. It was actually pretty good. So the thesis of that book is basically like it's been adopted. It's not like he created the idea, but like it's been echoed with like Google and their moonshot goals, where you create a goal that you think is impossible, that you'll never reach. Not impossible. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but something that's a stretch. Like kind of freaks you out a little bit to like think of like what you would have to do. Like your goals should scare you. That's the kind of the takeaway. And like I've heard it put another way where it's like if you go big, it's going to take the same amount of effort to 10x whatever you're working on and 100x. It's going to be very extremely hard. Like if your goal is 10x or 100x, you're going to put maximum effort in. It's the same type of hard, so you might as well shoot for the bigger one because I mean, not to get too into the nitty gritty of like what we have going on here, but we're on pace to like smash our goal for this year, and we're like halfway through. So it's like maybe we need to like set more ambitious goals in house,
Yeah, and when we set that goal, we thought it was a stretch.
Yeah, but like that's like the whole point of like 10x, where it's like basically go into the realm of like irrational to goal setting, and then like in his experience, you just humans are innovative and will find ways. Like if your back's pressed up against the wall, that's when you perform best. And to basically put yourself in that situation as many times as you can to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, it forces you to hustle, right? Because you're not. I mean, if you can achieve the goal by coasting, then there's nothing. You're not making that extra sales call. You're not making that extra. You're not staying up and working on projects. It's not uncommon that you and I are Saturday morning, Sunday morning, are researching things for either our models or for the podcast or something to do for a client. And without that kind of, I got to get that done. That deadline there. There's nothing that drives you forward.
Yeah, I mean, we still have at the time it seemed like a moonshot goal of our 5-year goal, but like we really we were really excited at the beginning of this year that 2021 was going to be a good year, and it's looking like we're correct. Like we've been doing really well this year. Like with our models are performing really well, even with the corrections in March. So like it's even looking like our moonshot goal isn't that much of a moonshot goal anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the important thing is that as you get going, and I think the mistake that somebody would make is I set a goal and then I wait till I achieve that goal before the next goal gets there. And then what happens is you have some downtime now because now you're in limbo where, okay, I accomplished it, great, and you've got that moment of satisfaction, but where do I go from here? And I think that as you approach that goal, we should already have another sight in mind so that we're not bogged down. So if our goal is to do X, we're going to do X times 5, 10X, going forward. Right? 10X, right?
Well, this is actually really good too. Bill Gates, I don't know if is he disgraced yet? there's a lot of stuff coming out about Bill Gates now. So hopefully, like by the time we release this, it doesn't come out that anything horrible. Melinda Gates has some great lawyers. Let's just say that. But his quote is, people overestimate what they can do in a year, but vastly underestimate what they can do in 10. And I think that's a really good quote.
I think so. The book that I read that I thought was pretty good was Brian Tracy had a book on goals, and the whole basis behind that book is, when you set a goal, the first question you want to answer is why. Why am I setting that? And for a number of reasons. Darren Hardy had a quote, and Darren Hardy said, I'm going to butcher this, but it was something like, commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after the mood in which you said it has left.
I like that.
And if
that's
you think
good.
about,
that's really good.
Yeah. And think about like that New Year's resolution that people make to lose weight. You know, they're bloated, they're fat, they just finished their third round of cheesecake, and they say, you know, darn it, in 2021, I'm going to lose weight. And they're in that mood to lose weight. But then the alarm goes off at 5:30 and it's February, and all of a sudden that mood is left. Mm-hmm. And so what's keeping you to do that? And Darren Hardy would say, I want to lose weight. Why? Because it's going to make me healthy. That's not why people do things. There has to be something behind that will shake you to your core. So somebody might say, I want to lose weight. Why? Because I want to see my grandchild born. I want to be there for when my daughter gets married. I want to be there for something that is bigger than yourself that is going to require you to get that done. The other thing why you would want to list why I want that to happen is you could possibly shortcut those goals. For example, I might say, I want to set a goal of $50,000 a year of passive income. Why? So I can spend more time with my family. Do I actually need $50,000 of passive income to spend more time with my family? Maybe I can find a better way to do that, where I can shortcut that so that I'm not having to spend those years of generating that passive income, and I'm not missing out on all those memories. Maybe one of the things I did this year was recently is Tuesday mornings. I'm going to wake up early, and my daughters and I are going to go hiking. We're going to go river walking. We're going to do something together. Yeah. I don't need passive income to do that. I'll just get up, before the sun, as the sun's coming up, I'm going to get up and do that so that we can go out and be together. Yeah, cool. I like that.
I don't know if you touched on this at all. Yeah, I think for some reason this popped into my head when you were saying that. I just recently watched The Last Dance. I finally got to it.
It's a great documentary
in parts, but I sat down and watched it from beginning to end. And one of my favorite parts was he would. I don't know if this means he's mentally ill. He's probably a little mentally ill, but he would wholeheartedly believe that the other he'd create these scenarios in his head where he'd be like, did John Stockton play during that time? I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was with him, where he was he pretended that John Stockton said something in the media that he was slow or he couldn't guard him or whatever, and then if he would have strapped him to a lie detector test, he would have he wholeheartedly believed with everything in his being that John Stockton was talking crap, but and then he would just bully him throughout the 7-game series or whatever, just go at him as hard as he can, try to make him quit, single him out just because he thought he said something or whatever. And then in The Last Dance he goes, yeah, I know that he didn't say any of that stuff. But he was telling everybody, he's like, yeah, he was talking crap, and he really believed it with his whole heart. That's so I wonder if I'm mentally ill enough to create those. Do you do that at all? Where you create scenarios in your head that aren't necessarily
when
true?
I was it's being in business is competitive for sure. It's a different type of competitiveness than obviously I can't go out and bully financial advisors and so it's a different level of and it actually took me a while to realize that, not in the sense that I can't go out and bully financial advisors, to realize that it's more mental. When you're in sports, you're driving yourself to get into that competitive advantage where you're in better shape, where you've practiced more foul shots, you've practiced more catches, more throws, so that you're better than the other person. And my success in life has always been, while I think that I'm an intelligent guy, intelligent enough to make it work, I've never been the smartest guy in the room. So the way that I got from point A to point B was I was willing to work harder. I was willing to put more hours in and do their thing. And that's how when I played at Mount Union, that's how I was. I spent more time in the weight room. I spent more time training. And then when you get in the real world where people are not paying you to run a 40-yard sprint or catch a ball, it's putting that in mental and switching that to mental from physical. That was something that it took a while to get to, because there's something about that physical aspect that's rewarding, because you can actually feel it, right?
Sure.
And on the mental edge of it, you can see it, you see the results, but you don't feel it putting into it. But no, I've never had a problem with lack of motivation, and part of that, without getting into some depth, if I look at my history, my life, there are some things that I can lean on to as I have maybe felt a little bit inadequate about things in my life, maybe things people that I didn't have, and I've tried to use that weakness as a source of motivation. So what do they say? You take your disadvantage and turn it into your advantage.
Sure. Yeah, I always like one of the best feelings in the world is walking into an empty gym. This might just be for me, not just because you don't have to wait for equipment, but it feels good to because I always work out with a buddy. My buddy's name is Gavin. He would probably like that I shout him out because he listens to the podcast. But whenever we walk in, I kind of get I don't know if it's a chip on my shoulder where it's have fun sleeping. Like everybody's sleeping while I'm out here putting in the work. That kind of feels.
I used to love that.
Yeah, that feels good.
I used to love that.
Enjoy your 30 minutes of sleep. I'm in here slamming weights,
Getting a head start, right?
That feels good.
No, I always found that I would lift at odd times, a lot of times, especially when I was in college. It might be 9 o'clock at night, and I knew there were people that are out drinking, having a good time, and I was in the squat rack, and it just felt that level of satisfaction because while they're resting, I'm getting ahead.
Sure. I feel the same way when I'm doing either stuff for the podcast or websites or stuff for Crosby at in the late hours. That always makes me feel good for that same reason where you just kind of feel like you're putting in the work. It's a good feeling.
Right. And that's the case. I mean, I think if you look at success can be broken down into habits. Really, our lot in life is a culmination of the habits that we have. So if I have a habit of waking up and cracking open a beer and drinking a 6-pack before noon, my lot in life probably isn't going to be that great. Because chances are, if you look at your personal income, a lot of it is a result of the value that you provide to others. If you are, Derek, if you are a good IT person and you're able to program and you're offering that company solution, the companies will pay you good money for that. They're not going to pay you money to wake up and start drinking beer at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if we want to be at a certain level, ultimately the questions that we ask ourselves are, what are the habits that are going to get me there? If it's something mental, how much time do I need to put into researching? If it's something physical, what kind of shape do I need to get in? What kind of skills do I need to learn to get there? And those habits are going to be the thing that are going to be our success or failure.
Did you ever read, I believe it's called Atomic Habits? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I did.
You like
I didn't read it. I listened to it on a book.
I never, that one's in my Instagram feed, I get people recommending books or whatever. And that one has popped up more than once. So I was wondering if that's worth my time to read.
It is worth your time to read. To me, a successful book is something that you can take something from, one thing.
I have a higher bar than that. Because
really?
do you ever? Sorry to interrupt you, but do you ever start a book and then not finish it, or do you just power through?
I will. I'm more than happy to stop a book if it's because my time's valuable.
Sure. I for some reason I like the satisfaction of finishing a book. And even if I'll be 3/4 of the way through and enjoy it, it's not necessarily that the first 3/4 are bad, but then that last fourth, we're just kind of wrapping up, and it's I could be done with this, and all of the useful information's gone. It's just kind of either summarizing or doing whatever it's doing, and you feel like you can stop, but for some reason I'm just one more hour.
Well, there's nothing wrong with seeing it through. I just when I read. You read for two things. You could read for entertainment, or you could read to gain knowledge. If I'm looking to gain knowledge, I know that I told you this morning my wick is burning, and there's so much time that I have to acquire this knowledge. Only so much time I have to acquire this knowledge, and so if I feel a book's not providing to me, I'm going to move on to the next one. But let me give you that Atomic Habits. Here's one thing that I took from that I thought was pretty brilliant. If our lot in life is a culmination of our habits, which I believe it is. He talked about stacking habits. And what he meant by that is if you want to pick up a new habit that would be beneficial to you, what you do is you stack it to an existing habit. For example, Derek, you wake up every morning and you work out. And let's say that you had a goal of being able to save more or to maybe start an investment plan. So here's what you do. You wake up every morning, and on the completion of every workout, you transfer X amount of money into an investment account. And so now you're stacking that habit. And once you get to do that, once you finish your workout, you're going to get to the point where, okay, my workout's done. I got to transfer my money into my investment account. So that you're taking a habit that you already have, that's already a positive habit that you have, and you're adding another one to that. And then pretty soon that's clockwork. Every time you finish your working out, you're transferring money into your investment account. And before you know it, you're saving 15% of your income, and you're well on your way to financial success.
They say it takes 7 weeks of like doing something over and over again to like basically create new. I don't know. This might be. I didn't hear this from a scientist, so I don't know if this is true. But it basically takes 7 weeks if you do it every day to make or break a habit. So if you're trying to like quit smoking or something, like you'd have to do it for 7 weeks before it, like you don't have any more desire to keep smoking. Or if you want to start a habit, like if you do it for every day for 7 weeks, then it becomes effortless. You just do it like it's second nature. It comes second nature.
And they touch on that because there's different studies out there, and it depends on the habit, and it depends on how complex the habit is. So if you want to stop smoking, that might be a longer time to go than somebody who wants to create a habit of, saving $50 a week into their investment account, because that's easy. That's just me pressing a button and transferring $50. But
sorry.
Smoking is that everyday urge, every minute urge to how do I resist
I wish I knew where I heard this as well. But they say the reason quitting smoking cigarettes is so hard is because it's like breaking 3 habits at once. So it's basically because it's like it relieves anxiety. A lot of people like do it to relieve anxiety. It's like the chemicals are actually relieving the anxiety. And then it's the same concept of like a fidget spinner, like the process of like dunk dunk and like pulling out a cigarette, lighting it, like that process is kind of like the same thing like a fidget spinner does, where it just gives your hands something to do. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 habits, and I forget the third one, but they say that's why like smoking is especially difficult to quit.
Well, and I can tell you this as somebody who has used tobacco before, not smoking, but it's tied to an activity.
That might be the third one. Be the third one.
Yeah. So maybe you're out mowing the lawn and you've got that urge to put a cigarette in. And every time you answer the phone because you're talking to somebody, you put a cigarette in. And that's the other thing to break is how do I divorce myself from linking that habit to smoking?
Maybe I believe that's actually the third one. Because like a lot of people do it when they're like drinking their coffee or like drinking whatever, or drinking beer or something. Like it's linked to an activity. So yeah, you're basically breaking 3 habits at once.
So do you have any recommendations if somebody were trying to achieve goals or they had a goal in mind? What would be your recommendation to is there a method or a process or something that you would recommend in your past that has helped you kind of chase down those goals?
I think the biggest thing that might be unique, because I could give you the stuff that like Google would tell you if you searched it, but I think the one thing that I can offer that's unique is don't kid yourself. Like you know whether you actually care about that goal or not. And I guess I can kind of give a good example. So, like I play like chess, right? So, and it's something that I actually like practice and try to get better at. But I'm never gonna put in the amount of effort that it takes to be like a grandmaster in chess. I don't care about it that much. So don't make a goal like I'm gonna be a chess grandmaster when you know for a fact that you don't care about it that much and you're not gonna put in that time. That'd be good. So like if like it kind of ties back into like what you said about like with weightlifting, it's like because I want to be healthier. It's like I don't know if that's strong enough. So it's like even if it's something like more in vain, where it's like I want to work out more or I want to lose fat or whatever, just because I want to look better. It's like if that's the actual reason, then say that's the actual reason. Like don't kid yourself and be like I want to have lower blood pressure. It's like unless you actually care about that, like don't say that, because it's like you'll never. It doesn't give you that oomph behind the goal that'll take you to completion.
No, in my experience, and I spent years out of college working in cardiac rehab and training. People tend not to do things purely for health reasons, because if they did, they wouldn't be there in the first place. I mean, we wouldn't be eating the McDonald's cheeseburgers, we wouldn't be smoking and doing things. quitting that is noble, but there largely has to be something beyond that, beyond the health. Like I said, I'm quitting smoking because I want to see my daughter born. I want to see my grandchild born. Something that would maybe shake you a little bit more at your core.
I think it was on the Joe Rogan podcast where he said he trains as if somebody's trying to hurt his family. Like that's what's going through his head while he's lifting weights. It's like that would be enough. It's like you're gonna train pretty freaking hard if that's in the back of your head for an hour. It's like somebody's trying to hurt your family. You're gonna be swinging those kettlebells extra hard, or like going a little extra deeper on those squats.
So there's somebody who's listened to this podcast and they're into weightlifting, and they had asked me what was they wanted to get better at the bench press. And so for my size in college, I always had a relatively high bench press to my size. And they had asked, what did you do? What was your technique? And since probably high school, senior year of high school, every time I would bench press, I would have the same thought in my head before I did that. And it was that Michael Jordan, I didn't create it. It actually existed, but it was something that like Joe Rogan's talking about, which infuriated me. And I wasn't going to allow that to beat me.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
So the thing that I would do as far as chasing down goals is, I think, number one, you need to write about it.
Yeah, for sure.
As I mentioned before that you have to figure out why you're there. What's the why behind you trying to achieve this goal, and then write about them. They have to be front and center. They can't be something that you write down, you stick in a drawer. I mean, I would write about mine almost every day. I would wake up and because the reason I'm writing about them is I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do that day that's going to move me closer to that goal. And I'm going to make that the first thing. I mentioned that on a prior podcast. So I'm writing down what my goal is, and then I figure out, okay, of my to-do list, what is the one thing I can do today that will move me closer to that goal? And that's the thing I'm going to do first. That way, if the rest of the day goes to complete hell, at least I have made the day a success by moving it one step closer to that goal. And the other thing you have to do, I think, is track it. So as a company, you had mentioned we had set a long-term goal, and then we set a yearly goal. And you do a very nice job of reminding me where we're at in that goal. We're tracking it. Because the reason why you want to track it is there's another quote here, and I don't know who it came from, but it said something about don't change your goals, change the plan. So if the plan if what you're doing every day is not working, is not moving you closer to your plan, you don't bring your goals down. Find another way to get that, circumvent that. Go over it, go under it, go around it.
I mean, that's
blow
like
it
what
up,
you said
whatever you have to
about
do.
spending more time with your daughters. Where it's like maybe you can't, like maybe creating $50,000 in passive income in a year is like that'd be a pretty big moonshot goal. But it's like you can accomplish the same goal by like circumventing it, or be creative and think of a new way that you can have the same outcome.
Yeah. Is what I'm trying to achieve, is that what is actually necessary to achieve my goal? So if it is more time with the family, if it is more vacation time, if it's, whatever it might be, I want to write a book. I want to make passive income so that I can have time to write a book. Well, do you actually need passive income to do that? Or is there another way around that?
Do you have any goals that you wanted to share? I had a bunch written down. Getting back to the whys and whatever. So all my goals are, for the most part, linked to the business, because a lot of my goals are income based and a lot in production based. And I actually think money is a very noble thing to chase. And we've gotten this before. What is money? Well, money is something that you get for providing value to others. If that's the case, so it's an exchange of value, and it's a peaceable exchange of value. If I pay you, Derek, to build a website for me, it's going to take you X amount of hours to do that. And when you accept my money, what you're saying is the time that's going to take to build that website is worth, that you're giving up to build the website is worth the money that I'm paying you. And by me paying you the money, what I'm saying is that website that I'm going to have is worth the amount of time it took me to earn that money. It's an exchange of value. So money to me is a very noble thing. So it's linked to the business. I will, though, say that every year I'm more conscious in the time that as my daughters get older, and every parent will talk about that. It's a fleeting moment here, and it becomes more evident as it ages. I'm looking at my oldest, who's going to be driving in 2 years, and it seemed like yesterday I was taking her out and we were sitting on the docks, and she was a little girl and I was teaching her how to fish. So it goes by fast. So on the personal level, I would say my goals tend to be more family oriented. How do I get that time?
How do I make room for time? And on the business end, I don't really have personal goals anymore because it's all linked to the business. I know if the business does well, then I will do well.
You don't want to get your 400-pound bench press back?
I did have a goal for that. I'm falling short of that. But so to get back to that, I am not. Maybe I just need to change the plan instead of lowering the goal.
So one of the goal I had my goal when we did the weightlifting podcast was bench 225, and I actually got that, but I've only done it once, and I've tried it many times after and before, and I failed. I've only been able to get it one time. So maybe I took an extra half scoop of pre-workout or something that got me to get that bar up, but.
But you've also had some changes in your workout schedule. You took up.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do it in a
jujitsu?
couple weeks.
Yep.
Well, one because of vacation, and two, because we're moving out here the 7th of July, so that's next week. So yeah, I haven't really been able to do it, but I had a lot of fun when I was doing it, and I'll probably pick it back up once I'm back in Orville for the rest of the year.
But when you set that goal of that bench press goal, you actually when you were training, you were moving up pretty steadily. Like every week, you would tell me, "I got this,
Yeah.
I got this, I got this," and it was.
That was a
steady
lot
climb.
because of you. You gave me a new strength training workout routine, which was working a lot better at getting my 1 rep max up. When I was kind of doing the more, not it was kind of
pyramid scheme.
It was more of
Not scheme, not pyramid scheme. The pyramid,
pyramid scheme.
That's that's a traditional, the bench press you were doing was a traditional pyramid thing that, even reputable strength training coaches would teach you.
What I was doing before was more it was like a hybrid between hypertrophy training and strength training, but I was doing the parts of it that basically the worst of both worlds, where I wasn't really pushing I wasn't progressing really, because I would do 12, 10, 8 reps or whatever, but then it would be really hard to do push my 12 rep, whatever weight I was doing at 12 reps. That was a very slow progression, and it wasn't really affecting my 1 rep max.
Mm-hmm.
So that shift kind of helped me. So I guess that kind of goes back to change the way you pursue the goal, change the plan, and that kind of worked for me then.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think, so if I could parlay that, I think if you've got a goal, ask somebody who knows a lot about it. So for example here, so you had asked me about weightlifting, and I know that if you're going to increase your 1 rep max, an easier way to do that, it's not the only way, but an easier way to do that is you got to lift weights that are within 80% of your 1 rep max. So you got to push that envelope. And you don't do that on your 5th set. You do that on your.
That was a big thing.
That
was a big thing. Every time I would max out, it would be my 5th or 6th set. Which by that, you were absolutely right. Even I kind of your second sets. I never can max out on my second set, or even my 3rd set sometimes, where I feel like I'm leaving something on the table if I do it on my 3rd set. It's so. It might be different per person, or maybe I'm not warmed up or something. But that was another thing where it's don't do 5 sets beforehand, or that was one thing that helped too.
Yeah, but on the other end of things, when you came here and started working with me, you would make fun of me because I had not make fun of me in a nice way, because I was working with one monitor, and the efficiencies that you have put in as far as our technology here. Now I look back and I was I don't know how I operated without this, because it's just so much easier, so much more efficient, and so somebody who in the know who knows a lot about technology. It's something that I always defer to you on. When we have to order a computer here at the office, I say, Derek, order it.
That was the one thing I was going to bring up was how slow your computer was. That thing was oh my gosh, that thing was horrible. And we use it now. It basically has one purpose, and that's print. It's just we give it, and even exactly. It's slow at that. It was a really, really bad and old computer, but now you got set up. You got a good one now.
Yeah, and I've asked somebody who's in the know, and I'm much better off for that. So I would recommend anybody who's find somebody in the know in that field and ask them questions, and they'll get you further ahead rather than pounding your head against the pavement, trying to do it maybe the wrong way.
I guess some of the goals that I had written down that I wanted to share were I want to my long-term goals. I want to travel to a new place every year. So this year I'm going to, I guess I have 3 banked then, so I get a 3-year break if I fall short of my goal. But I'm going to Nashville in September, not last week, And then it looks like now we're going to be able to make that Europe trip work. So I'm going to Germany and Italy as well. Yeah. And then,
Nice.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a good goal to have. I think one of the things I find when I come back from places that I've never been to, or just that I get out of the normal routine, is you come back with a new perspective, you come back with new ideas, and
Mhm.
come back refreshed, you're ready to go.
Another long-term goal. I didn't have. I guess the one that is my moonshot, I guess, is I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And like when people say that, it's like it's not like you can retire off $1 million when you're 30 years old, because like the amount of income you'd have to draw, like it wouldn't be possible to retire. But I think at that point where you kind of get the momentum of compound growth working for you, where you don't have to work as hard. And a big thing with me is like maximize, like even though I'm so young, I feel like the wick burning, like we were talking about that earlier today, and I think you mentioned it before, where it's like I feel that even though I'm so young, and I feel like I don't know how to describe it, but where I feel like some people may have, like people realize that too late, and I kind of feel fortunate that I realized that when I'm so young. So I'm putting in a lot of effort into basically letting my money work for me at an earlier stage in my life, rather than waiting until I'm 65 to enjoy the fruits of my labor when it comes to like delaying gratification and income and passive income, etc.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, from without divulging too much information, first of all, the ability to hear that clock ticking is a gift. And Jocko Willink always talks about that. He can hear that clock ticking. And I think that is a gift, because then we lose that procrastination. If we know that there's a finite end here, and there's this window of time that I have to operate, I'm going to act now. I'm going to act with as much vigor and as much enthusiasm and energy that I can possibly put into it. So I look at you. You said some people say I want to be a millionaire, and they just kind of throw that out there. But in many ways, you're reverse engineering that. Number one, through your savings rate, what you're putting into there, your investments that can actually get you there. You're not taking that money and putting it into a CD. And the other thing is where you're saving it. So you want to talk about this passive income. You want to be able to enjoy the money while you're in the prime of your life. Well, you're not stuffing that into a 401k. You're putting that into something that you actually use and appreciate being able to use and withdraw without any penalties at that age if you choose to do that.
Sure.
So
And then this ties into one of my short-term goals is when we move out to Denver. I've already discussed it with some people that maybe want to go in on it with me, but like we talked to Andrew Bang on the real estate investing podcast. It was a really good podcast, and I hope we get to have him on again soon, because he said he wanted to get more into the numbers and stuff, and that's kind of what I was curious about. But I want to do real estate investing when I get out to Denver. That's a shorter term goal, because I'm moving next year.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like this is a really big takeaway for like long-term investing, where like people kind of like shuck off dividends because it'll pay like 1 or 2%, but it's like that's the kind of investment that'll like actually change your life and change your lifestyle. Where like if Nvidia, you buy Nvidia, not that Nvidia, like Nvidia is it's my second largest holding. Like I am very bullish on Nvidia, but it doesn't change my lifestyle if it goes from 500 to 800. You know, that's
at least not immediately.
Well, not immediately, right? Like you would have to, I think you said this in a previous podcast, you have to actually sell it to make it an asset, or else it's just like it's locked up somewhere. Where if
it's on your balance sheet, you see it, but it's not doing anything. It's not paying your mortgage. It's not paying a car payment for you. It's there.
Yeah, like, but with passive income, that's like where you can truly change your lifestyle. Where this was something that you really ingrained into me like early on when I started working here, which was like developing the passive income and like allocating it towards, like, you put it in real terms, and this kind of helps me like view it, where it's like, let's say you had enough passive income to like pay your car payment. That effectively gives you a raise, because that money that you allocated in your salary to pay your car payment can be used to invest more, and then you get the snowball effect there. Or imagine where you've generated enough passive income where it pays your mortgage, where it's like your largest expenditure.
Freedom.
Yeah, like that's you can achieve financial freedom so much faster. Like it's not like you you maybe not be able to retire, but that would definitely, you would feel the effects of that. Like that would genuinely change your life. And it's kind of like what Dave Ramsey says, where it's like pay off your house as soon as possible. It's like there's issues like we've talked before where it's like we're not the like a lot of his plans are very good as far as paying off debt goes. But if like your one and only goal is to like pay off your house, that would like free up more income. But it'd be better to have that income like actually be paid to you. Yeah,
Work
it's
for
like
you.
so even when your house is paid off, it's like you're still getting that income rather than you have a paid off house when you're 50 and then it's like now what? And then you're gonna have to go into hyperdrive to try to like invest because you deployed all that capital into paying off your house.
Right. What if my assets could pay off
Sure.
my house ahead of time? So what if I had a 30-year mortgage and I was funneling money into dividend paying stocks, into high yield bonds, into real estate, and it was producing income that I could use to, at some point in time, I could use that to pay my house off early or accelerate that. Then I have the advantage of paying it off sooner. I still have my assets that I've accumulated. I've got my house. I mean, I think over time we want to be net purchasers of assets. And I know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But to me, I look at my mortgage payment. My mortgage on my house is 3.25%. I'm not in a hurry to rush to pay that down because if I can earn, look what our tactical model did last year. I mean, what's the lost opportunity cost in that? So I think that what happened with me when I got into the passive income, and that's what really gets me excited. I too own NVIDIA and I own Amazon and some of these traditional high flying stocks. But what gets me excited is seeing those dividends come in each month. And when I set off when I created my non-qualified account, the rule that I made for that account, at least initially, was nothing was going to go in here unless it paid dividend or interest. And so it was going to generate some sort of income for me. And my goal at first was I'm going to pay off my water bill. Or I'm going to have my investments pay my water bill. And then once my water bill was satisfied, I'm going to have them pay my electric bill. And then you keep moving to these other lifestyle needs that you have. And pretty soon you realize that, man, less and less of my daily lifestyle needs is paid for by my 9-to-5 job, right? It's not 9 to 5, but my
Day job.
my actual active job, which to me is freedom. That is financial freedom. When I do, and maybe, by 35 or 40, you're not to the point where you can call it quits and retire. Most people, that's early retirement. Most people can't do that. But if half of your income needs are satisfied by investments and the economy goes into a tailspin or we go through a recession or you get injured, you're in much better shape than somebody who is living paycheck to paycheck and they need that
Or have
income
all
to
of
make it
their
work.
net worth stashed in the equity in their house.
Yeah, that they need to ask for a loan to get it back, right?
Yeah, I think that's gold. It's the being net purchasers of stocks. You talked about that a lot last podcast, and I think it's super important to hit home because going back to like NVIDIA or something, because that's a good example where like you definitely want to own it, but you don't want to own 20 NVIDIAs and that's your entire portfolio because like you would have to sell it and create a taxable event, and we want to be net purchasers of stocks, and like the passive income is a better way to do that. It definitely needs to be it definitely needs to be a significant part of your portfolio.
Yeah, and I would just say assets in general, something that either produces income or appreciates or a combination of both, and stop worrying about when am I going to sell this, when am I going to get out of it. I'm just worrying about accumulating.
That's one of sorry I interrupted you again, but that's one of the like the really impressive thing. I don't know the right remarkable or commendable things about the Bitcoin community is like that's literally their only concern. They really do not care. I mean, there's like the concept of like paper hands and diamond hands, like the people that are just like trying to flip it in like trading options or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like the people that are really bullish on Bitcoin, like Michael Saylor, who's the CEO of MicroStrategy, who financed how much? Do you remember how much it was? $500 million corporate bond just to buy Bitcoin. Where it's like that's insane. That is so crazy. That's so insane.
Yeah, that is. I don't even know the word here that's family friendly, but it's a lot of guts.
Okay, so don't go that crazy. But like people that are a true believer in that asset, where they don't care about the price of the stock, they just care about accumulating as much as you can until they believe the rest of the market realizes the true value of Bitcoin, where it's like, that's the attitude you need to have, but maybe not. I don't know. If you believe in Bitcoin, believe in Bitcoin, but it's like, there's probably more sure bets for sure. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Derek, I don't mean to cut
Yeah,
it
I
short.
was
I have to
looking
get
at
to
the
a
time, yeah.
softball game here tonight. So I appreciate this was an awesome topic. This is actually a topic that's near and dear to me because I get behind this because what gets me up in the morning is moving that bar forward, or moving that bar higher, I should say. And the one way you get there is
For
through
sure.
the goals and the habits. So I appreciate
no
you bringing
problem.
this topic up.
As always, thank you guys for listening to Dynamic Growth. If you like the podcast, like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Dynamic Growth Pod and at Crosby Advisory Group. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Crosby Advisory Group, and we will see you guys next week.
And remember, Crosby Advisory is a registered investment advisor. At any time, you can request our forms ADV2A and 2B, which go into the business practices and qualifications of Crosby Advisory. Today on the show, Derek and I mentioned specific securities. That is not a recommendation for you to go out and buy them, sell them. Please do your own homework. Understand that investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal, and you should carefully consider all risks and fees before making an investment. Crosby Advisory is also a licensed insurance advisor. Insurance products are sold and serviced through Crosby Advisory.